We are live, baby! Welcome to TRB Live as I blow out your ears because my family's not home, so I got to scream extra loud tonight. But it's for good reason because we are here to give our predictions, which are very serious, and our speculation on the upcoming series Ahsoka, which debuts in less than a week. We are very excited to talk about that. I'm John. With me, as always, is James and Lacey. Thank you to everybody who is watching, if you're watching live or if you're listening in your favorite podcast app. Thanks for just being with us. TRB is a good time, especially when we have all of our friends with us, whether it's in the live chat or just listening and participating in a fun, hopefully thoughtful Star Wars conversation. And today it's going to be a lot of Ahsoka, pretty much all Ahsoka. But before we get into anything, James, Lacey, how you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I've got some crazy stuff going on. Number one, today was kind of cool. I got to go to Taco Bell and try one of their items, and they gave me $100 gift card, which is always cool to get paid to go eat Taco Bell. It's like a new item that they had on the menu. But on the downside of that, last night when I let my dog out at like midnight, it was like 12:20, almost 12:30. I noticed he was like making some weird motions in the grass, rolling around and doing some stuff. And then I was like, I smell skunk.
Oh.
And then when he got closer, I realized that he did in fact get sprayed and skunked. And
skunked is the word, right?
Yeah. And so it involved like trying to bathe him and clean him. And our whole house smells like skunk. It's awful. It's awful.
Gosh.
Did you do the tomato juice thing? I learned that from Rugrats back in the 90s.
No, we looked into it and we had multiple people online and in person tell us Coke.
Did you
which
try?
I think is weird, but
Coke takes blood off the highway, so I'm not surprised it takes.
That's what I'm saying. They said get Coke bath. You want to do Coke, know that? And then there was also this like hydrogen peroxide thing too. But
Me?
Like, I mean, we're doing it all.
Yeah. Was there an incident that I'm not aware of?
First of all, there's no
that's
incident. That's what they say in chemistry class in high school to explain how bad Coke is for you. Which I love Coca-Cola.
Like an old sort of, I don't
They
know how
bad
thing, but it's
You know how bad Coke is? If you murder someone, you could clean up your
No, it's like when there's a car accident or something.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, they're trying to say like if it could do that, it could just imagine what it's doing to
or
your
like
insides.
They have the video where they put the steak in Coke and it like eats the steak.
Yeah.
You know, is Coke
still
sentient?
delicious? I love Coke.
Coke
is what?
Coke is sentient. It eats.
It is, yeah.
Yes.
Cherry Coke is my favorite soda.
I was gonna say, James, did you try using Taco Bell hot sauce on your dog?
Oh, Diablo? Yeah, of course.
Okay.
That actually fixed it right away.
You know what sucks? I got Taco Bell today too, and I just got Taco Bell. I didn't get paid for it.
You didn't get paid.
Yeah.
I got paid.
What'd you get? Crunchwrap Supreme?
No, you had to. I had to try and do. You do the survey thing. So it was I did a barbecue chicken flatbread melt or something. Which hey, it's $2 and it's pretty filling. So they're getting their advertisement out of me now. It's pretty good.
$100 to eat Taco Bell. Jeez, I got
my favorite is still the naked chicken taco. When they had that, it was like a piece of chicken that they just bent like this.
What? Well, it's not naked then. Was there no tortilla? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was just a piece of chicken that they kind of cook like this, and then they put stuff in.
Yeah, it was like the double down of Taco Bell.
It was. I loved it. And then they had the chicken nachos, which were triangle pieces of chicken that you dipped in cheese.
Holy cow!
Nachos Bel Grande, great choice. Too pricey now.
Lacey, did you get Taco Bell today? And did you get
I
money
didn't.
for it?
I feel left out. I got a club crust yesterday though. So
do you want me to order you Taco Bell and DoorDash right now and see if it arrives during the podcast?
Get a barbecue chicken flatbread.
No. I just get her cinnamon twists and that's it.
Ew. That's the worst thing on the menu. Cinnamon twist.
All right. So we are here to talk Star Wars, of course, but that was a nice little warm up. And hi to everybody in the chat. If you're on social media, share this so we get more people in the chat because it's going to be a fun episode. But again, thank you to everybody.
Share your Taco Bell orders in the chat. I like to judge people on their Taco
Bell. Fire
Bell.
away on that.
Wait,
but yeah,
John, what did you get?
Oh, I did steak chalupa and a soft taco and a hard taco, crunchy taco. and a bottle of water. I didn't do the whole soft
So
drink.
you were home alone today, so you were like, I'm gonna get Taco Bell.
I didn't have anything to cook. I had already used my home base for lunch, and I didn't want to have another turkey sandwich for dinner. So yeah, I went.
Fair.
And then Kathleen sent me a picture of them at Ray's Pizza in New York City. I'm like, Daddy,
You're like, I hate you.
look, oh man, I really want to.
Nothing makes John more offended than someone eating pizza without him.
Yeah, well, good pizza too. Ray's Pizza. All right, but last week we put out a pretty lengthy statement about where we stand with what's going on with all the union strikes and the studios and talking about Ahsoka. So here's essentially an abridged version of that. If you want the full one, check out last week's episode. But when it comes to the studios versus the artists, we are, as you probably know by now, 100% in support of the artists, the writers, actors, crew members, and all fighting against antiquated contracts and a changing landscape, including the fight against the escalating and potentially immoral use of AI. We have decided that we will talk about Ahsoka episodes each week on TRB Live. That will start next Wednesday. We will review Ahsoka as we do anything, honestly, with things we love, like, dislike, and scratch our heads over. The future of Ahsoka, these characters, and this connected storyline that will continue long beyond the end of the strikes are relying heavily on this show's success. We do not receive merchandise, money, or anything from the studios, and we are completely independent. We believe the best way forward is to cover the show, support those who made it, and we will continue to vocally stand on the side of the artists and unions in the hope a resolution is found that secures the future of art, which starts and stops with the people who create it. Now, Lacey, before we get rolling here with Resistance Report, followed by our predictions and speculation discussion, do we have any super chats?
We do have a couple super chats.
Nice. Thank you.
First is Kyle. What up, Kyle? Nice
Kyle.
shirt. Make Slow 2 Happen shirt in your photo. Love it. Thanks for the super chat. He said, can't watch live at the Cardinals Mets game. I'm so excited for Ahsoka. I predict we will get a flashback scene with Ahsoka, Anakin, and Obi-Wan.
Wow.
Thanks for all the great content. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank
that
you,
would
Kyle.
be epic, Kyle, and
much.
I hope that it happens.
That
We'll
would be
come back to
insane.
that for our little convo. Then we have Des Smith. Thank you so much for the super chat, who says, hyped for TRB Live, hyped for Ahsoka. We're
Thank you,
hyped too.
Des.
I feel like it's been so long that we collectively as Star Wars fans have been able to be hyped. So I'm pretty pumped about this.
Yeah.
And then Miles, thank you so much for the super chat, Miles. He said, predictions on Black Spire Outpost in the Outlaws game. I'm going to save this question, Miles, for Ask the Resistance at the end. But I did want to acknowledge that we got this question. So thank you so much. We're going to come back to it at the end because we want to give you the time and answer that you deserve.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree with that. Thanks, Miles. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody. All right. Now it is time for the first segment, giving James time to make sure it's queued up. Resistance Report.
It's the Resistance.
All right, guys. Ahsoka is coming out next week. And it's funny because we're just kind of now hearing about the directors that are being announced. And we're going to go through the list and kind of talk a little bit about each one of them. But it starts with Dave Filoni directing episodes 1 and 5, which is kind of funny because it seems like he always does like that fifth episode. It's kind of interesting. But similarly to The Mandalorian, he's kicking it off by doing the first one, which is pretty cool. Steph Green returning, doing episodes 2 and 3, so a little bit of a back-to-back thing with Steph Green. Peter Ramsey doing episode 4. Jennifer Getzinger is doing episode 6. Geeta, I'm gonna have trouble with this name. What do you guys think? Geeta Vasant Patel is doing episode 7. And returning to this Star Wars television live action world, Rick Famuyiwa is finalizing this first season or series or whatever with episode 8, locking in this first chapter of Ahsoka in live action. Now, a couple of these directors, like I said before, are newcomers to the Star Wars. They do have their the worlds that they've worked in before, but we're also seeing a couple people come back in Steph Green and Peter Ramsey, who've done Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian. So they are returning to direct more episodes. No, the only weird one I think is no Bryce Dallas Howard. She's been pretty recognizable through all of these, and we kind of had speculated that maybe she was being built up to lead more in Ahsoka, but she doesn't even show up in the director, so it's kind of interesting. John, what's your first take on hearing these names, and can you pull any sort of speculation out of the orders or episodes or anything like that?
Well, based on when, this was filmed, obviously before the release of Mandalorian Season 3, which employed Rick Famuyiwa as an executive producer and the closer, so to speak, doing 7 and 8 for that show. And however people feel about Mando Season 3, I think a lot of people would say like the ending was pretty strong, especially that 7th episode. So he seems to be like now trusted as this closer, and the fact that he's closing out Dave Filoni's show. The other thing to keep in mind is that being that Filoni, is writing this series and show running it, sort of how especially the first Disney Gallery, we really got an in-depth look over many episodes at how that first season of Mando was created. And Jon Favreau was very hands-on set. And George Lucas always was too. If you look at the original trilogy, he only directed the first one, but he's in Yoda's hut talking about how to pose with Frank Oz and stuff. He was all over Return of the Jedi. His presence was felt. Same thing with Favreau with Mandalorian with a bunch of directors. I think that's the case with Ahsoka. Dave Filoni's in the mix at all times, not because these directors necessarily need it. I don't know all these directors, but like Rick Famuyiwa for sure can handle his business. For that cohesiveness and to make sure, Ahsoka is shot right and all that sort of stuff. So I think this series is in good hands. I do find it interesting, like you brought up, James Filoni doing 1 and 5, which I think was his exact cadence for Mando season 1. Yeah. And he's setting the tone, sort of like Lacey's new favorite show, Lost. J.J. Abrams directed the first 2 episodes, then handed it off.
I'm in season 2, guys, and I'm back to hating it. It's been a roller coaster for me.
The one thing I'll say is I like seeing the returns. I think Steph Green did a good job with her episodes in Star Wars, and Peter Ramsey has his own resume for sure and did well also. But Rick Famuyiwa handling a lot of moving parts. Mando season 3, there was a lot of characters you had to tend to, especially to close out that season. And I think he did a really strong job of that. And he's certainly going to have to do that here because I think, I don't think, we know that Ahsoka is not going to shut a complete story. It's going to open up some new things. And for him to juggle all the characters, including our new villains, Thrawn, all of our heroes, the return of Ezra, whoever else we wind up being with by the end of this show, I think we should feel secure that we are in capable hands with Rick Famuyiwa because he has shown that he can do that. So those are my initial takeaways. But knowing that Filoni is the common thread and the glue, as he should be, especially for this character and these characters, I think we're in pretty good shape heading into this.
Yeah, Lacey, any thought on this director lineup?
I'm going to be honest. I know Peter Ramsey because I love Spider-Man, Spider-Verse that he's done. So I know him and he's very outspoken online. So he's like a fun follow. And obviously we know Rick from the way he's been involved with The Mandalorian. And it seems like Rick, Dave, and Jon Favreau are like the dream team, 3 Musketeers. Like they love working together and they're constantly joking with each other. And especially for the last season of The Mandalorian, like they were the press tour, the 3 of them. Like everything that had Mandalorian, they were there. These other people, I recognize some of the work that they've done. We know Steph Green has done some stuff for Star Wars as well. I did want to mention, James, you had mentioned like you're surprised Bryce is in here, which is a reaction, but a lot of people in the comments, and I remember her saying this, I think she's doing stuff for Skeleton Crew too. So a lot of people were saying in the comments like, oh, maybe they're shooting at the same time, which they were. These both are shooting at the same time, so that's probably why. But it's no surprise that she would be doing that over this, only because she really seems to like working with kids, like with the Mandalorian episode and everything. So I could see her bringing her in for that. That being said, I mean, I trust who they bring in. I've never been unhappy with any of the directors that they've chosen so far for these series. Everybody has their own spin on things and brings their own knowledge and experience, which is truly appreciated. I am probably most interested in Dave's episodes only because of who the character is. Since it's Ahsoka, I just want to see it through his eyes because it's his character. Followed by Rick, just because he's just so good. Rick is so good at what he does. And he's so clearly passionate about Star Wars that I can't wait to see what he does next. He's been doing a lot of these series, but I really want them to give him a movie. I think he would kill it. A Star Wars.
He does
movie.
have a very cinematic look to his
Yes.
episodes.
Yes. It's just a different vibe, if you will,
Yeah.
with Rick. But I think just hearing him talk about it too in the past, like gallery series and any type of interviews or anything, Rick always brings this kind of knowledge of film and history and just like a different viewpoint, which is so interesting to me compared to kind of like a Jon Favreau, who seemingly, not that he doesn't have a lot of experience, it's not what I'm saying, but he's more on like, you know, I see Jon Favreau of like doing Iron Man and Elf, whereas Rick's doing these like very kind of more serious, I would say, like movies that are like, and moments that are like coming from a different artistic lens.
Yeah.
So I'm always interested to hear what he has to say, because I feel like John goes very hard on kind of like the emotional angle of it. Like, how is this making you feel? How are you relating
Rick's
to this?
super grounded.
Yeah.
His movies are very about like the people and the internal struggle and stuff.
Right. So like I would say Rick's more about character development, and Jon Favreau seems to be more about like, is the audience going to enjoy this? Which I appreciate.
Yeah.
And I think when you get two people like that together, they bring different aspects that allow the actors to give more, the people behind the scenes to give more, and then just this for you as an audience person, as a fan, to get more out of the experience and the storytelling as well.
Mhm.
So I'm not surprised by any of these people. I'm probably most interested in Dave, and I'm surprised he's only doing 2 episodes.
Yeah. I like all the choices. I think the most interesting thing coming out of it, because every one of these shows always feels like they fill in like another person. Even going back as far as the originals, like I think most people are like, I don't know who Rick Famuyiwa is, you know, I don't know who Deborah Chow is, you know. It's just like they pick the right people, and we sort of learn those people. Now I think some of the sometimes we get a couple that we're like, whoa, that person's directing an episode, that's cool.
Mhm.
And there's no big surprise one in here other than maybe like Peter Ramsey, probably like the biggest, like, oh, that's really neat.
He won an
But
Oscar for Spider-Man, right? Didn't he?
The
I don't know if
movie
you-
did.
yeah,
I think he
yeah.
did. I think he was one of the people that won for it.
So but I think like as a fan of what we've seen before, I think the big takeaways from this is Dave directing the first episode, Rick directing the last episode. That's really cool and reminiscent of what we've seen before. That's great. We need to make a shirt that just says the closer, and it says like Rick Famuyiwa underneath it or something. I like that nickname for him. And then what we have always speculated about Dave, when he would direct that whatever episode, we're like, oh, that's the one where Ahsoka's going to show up, watch, you know. And it was like it totally was. Sometimes that gives us a little bit of hint. So when we get into the speculation section, I'm interested to talk about episode 5. Like, where do we think back-to-back Steph Green episodes are going to go? But and then sort of a one-off by Peter Ramsey, and then we get that episode where Dave is like, I'm doing that one, you know. Like, I don't know. It's interesting to look at how they've chosen their episodes. But that being said, about the directors,
Complete side note, really quick.
Yeah.
One of the funniest things recently that Matt's made fun of me for is being that we talk about this stuff all the time, and like we know these people by name and like who they are behind the scenes, like producers, writers, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm watching Lost, and at the beginning of the Lost DVD, there's this interview with Damon Lindelof and this other guy, and he's like, hey, I'm Damon Lindelof. And like in the show, when something stupid happens, I'm like, oh, thanks, Damon Lindelof. And Matt just laughs, and he's like, I don't know why you know these people and why you talk about them like you know them.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny when you're so in it all the time, and I'm sure these guys feel the same way, that like you feel like you're like, oh, J.J. Abrams, like.
No one says that. No one should ever say that.
Okay, there are times that everybody said J.J. Abrams because Everybody
a
says that
lens
about
flare or
everybody.
something.
Yeah. Oh, nice flare.
No, they say that about J.J. Abrams when he didn't even direct the movie. If there's a lens flare, people are like, "Oh, J.J., oh, get out of here."
But
he
he's
gets a kickback every time someone uses lens.
He's a lens flare. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just been laughing at me though, because especially with Damon Lindelof, he's very involved in Lost. So every time something happens that I don't like, I'm like, oh, thanks, Damon Lindelof.
Well, we do sort of feel like we get to learn these people by watching these types of videos that we're about to talk about here. There is an Ahsoka feature that was released called Master and Apprentice, and it felt in line with many shows that sort of have you get your trailer, but then you get this other one where the actors or whatever are kind of talking about it. This was different though, because this was like 7 minutes long. It was like, almost like a short little documentary about where the show's going and who Ahsoka is. And I think that lines up with some of the other things that we probably would talk about if we were doing a full Resistance report, not just a discussion. But a lot of the ads for this show have been talking about who even is Ahsoka? Who are these people? Let's explain it to you, the people that don't know, But Lacey, kick it off with your thoughts here on this featurette, and maybe a little bit on the ads. Like, what are your thoughts?
So the ads, I laughed out loud with the recent Anakin ad that ran, because we just talked about last week if we thought Anakin Darth Vader would show up. I believe we all said no.
We said they should, but they won't do it.
They should, but they won't do it.
Yeah.
And then literally, it's like they were like, oh, bet. And then
new lines of Hayden Christensen.
It's like Dwight Schrute saying, like, start the party. Like, Lucasfilm's like, release the Anakin promo.
It either came out
how nobody
Friday.
saw Han and Kira kissing in the first 5 minutes. Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah. So then when they released it, either Friday, I think it was Monday actually, and I just sent it to these guys. I just wrote LOL. Because here they were doing the exact thing that we were like, they probably won't do it. They're very secretive. And they were like, oh, word, here it is.
Yeah.
With new lines, which I thought was very cool, because it's, once again, like we said last week, of why they should do it. It draws that connection with audiences that know Anakin and know Hayden Christensen and know Darth Vader specifically. So regardless of what era you're in as a Star Wars fan, you're connected. And you're like, oh, this person's showing up, even if he's not. He probably will. This guy's showing up. I'm there. I'm going to watch. It's smart. It's smart marketing, especially when they're going through what they're going through right now, where they can't have people talking about this show. Like, if you look at all the clips, it always says previously recorded or recorded a while ago or whatever. That being said, I really enjoyed this featurette. You guys know this about me. I'm probably one of the biggest like behind the scenes persons, because that's what I went to school for, and that's what I really enjoy, is like learning how things work. This in particular was really cool, and I kind of got a little emotional watching Rosario Dawson talk about herself being Ahsoka and then other people with her being Ahsoka, like the clip where Dave Filoni is talking to the costume designer about, like, he's like, I look at her and I see the person that I drew. And like, that's just so crazy that like you could find such a perfect casting that you're like, this is the person I dreamt up and they're standing in front of me. And I really loved when Rosario Dawson was talking about how she was like, it's really hard for me to talk to this camera right now dressed as Ahsoka, because I want to be Ahsoka and not Rosario Dawson, and you're asking me questions as Rosario Dawson. But more than that, I really like how they included George. Naturally, I wish George talked about it on camera. But I think they just kind of smartly put him in there, because then you have fans, that are arguing, oh, George wouldn't want this. And there he is sitting there. He wants it. He wants to see it happen. He's there with Dave. Dave still has a close relationship with him. And it's kind of that nod hat tip of like, hey, this guy we have working here, he's on George's side. George wanted him to do this. So it kind of takes those people online down a notch where they're like, George wouldn't have done this. And like, there he is sitting there front row for this recording.
I like that they clearly made it like this is like a character that Dave created, but they also spell out that George kind of created this character too, because Dave was like, Anakin doesn't have an apprentice, and George looks at me right in the face and says, Anakin has an apprentice, and it's like that is the official word that Ahsoka exists now, you know?
Right. I just really enjoyed, and I just enjoyed the process of bringing this character to life and how serious they're taking this. Like, they're not doing this serious lightly. Like, Dave talked through the process of how they were going to make it happen and how he always had a dream of doing it and how it was all about timing, and then the support of Jon Favreau in the whole thing as well. It was just very smart because they played the cards of, you know, George Lucas, Jon Favreau. Like, they're just, it's like showing a poker hand of like a royal flush of all the people that support this project. So therefore you should as well. It was good. It was fun. It was fun to watch. I wish it was longer, actually.
Yeah, I kind of wish it was longer too. John, what are your thoughts? I mean, hopefully we'll get like a gallery of Ahsoka too, but John, thoughts on this and maybe a little bit of that marketing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the George Lucas stuff. And it was actually before I had watched this featurette. Hal Hickel from ILM posted a screenshot of it.
Oh, I love Hal. Yeah, he's in the back seat. Yeah,
he's sitting behind like George and John and Dave, and his caption was like, "Who let this guy in there?" or whatever. And I had wrote, because during the featurette they're talking about Mandalorian and Ahsoka, and you know, George Lucas is sitting there and he's pointing at something or whatever, and I just replied to Hal and I said, "Is this from the set of Ahsoka?" and he said yes. So George Lucas was on the set of Ahsoka, so that's really cool to hear, like, because I don't know that was necessarily confirmed or not.
Wow.
And like Lacey said, like, knowing that the person who created all of this and who essentially created Ahsoka and what she was is there, watching his understudy or heir, so to speak, make it come to life in live action. I think that's just it's just really cool to see. So definitely the George Lucas stuff, and like you said, James, the part about like him saying, "Wait a minute, Anakin doesn't have an apprentice," and George Lucas is like, more or less like, "Well, now he does."
Yeah.
So
oh my god, that made me laugh so hard because every story that Dave tells about like George making decisions, whether it be Yaddle or whoever, but specifically with Ahsoka, it was just like he told that story when they brought Clone Wars back, where he was just like, he was arguing about Star Wars with George Lucas, and George is like, "I don't care, I'm doing this. I don't care if it makes sense or not," which just makes me laugh because I think often people say, "You guys take this so seriously." I think that's an example where Dave was taking it too seriously, and George is like, "This is just supposed to be a fun story that I talk about, like, stuff that I like." So it just kind of brought it down and made me laugh. But yeah, I think any clips that they show where George is having a good time, when he's laughing Rosario Dawson, when he's watching stuff get filmed, when he's seeing the volume and he's like, "Oh, this is what I dreamed of." It's like a warm hug seeing George enjoying Star Wars again. And then it reminds me that like he's able to just leave and be like, "That was a fun day."
Just take me home.
Like, yeah.
He walks out and is like, they're on the wrong path. Like, you know.
But yeah, in addition to that, just hearing Dave say that his initial thought that Clone Wars was going to be like this apprentice and like Plo Koon going on these adventures during the Clone Wars, and like those two were going to be like the focus. And again, of course, it's Dave Filoni talking about Plo Koon, and George is like, "You know what? We're leaning fully into everything, Anakin, Obi-Wan, all that stuff." And Dave's like, "Oh, all right, so this is what the Clone Wars is going to be." And then the other thing that I liked a lot was Dave Filoni talking about the lightsaber duels and making sure they're done well because fans love them so much. And he's like, "And if you don't get it right," he said, "the fans will notice."
They'll notice. Yes,
and
I love that.
I love when he says that, because sometimes people don't like hearing that people make things with the fans in mind. But there's a nuance to that. There's like saying like, "Oh, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Here you go. Here you go. Here you go." And then there's like, I respect these fans so much because they get it, they love it, they know it, and they'll know when Ahsoka doesn't look right. So he respects the fans' knowledge. He respects that their sort of not demand, but their expectations of excellence and making this fake thing real. And the way to make it real is to make sure Ahsoka looks like we remember Ahsoka looking. Obviously different from how you can do things with animation and live action, but her motions, her physical
And she's
nuances,
so
tendencies, and
physical,
everything.
like
Yeah.
Rosario said. Yeah.
So I love those two things the most: the George Lucas stuff, and then of course Dave Filoni, respecting the fans and saying like they're gonna notice if we mess this up. We can't skirt over this at all. Like we can't get lazy and get a little laid back on this. We got to make sure we get it right. And I love that because someone who is in his position, he's not that way, thankfully, but could easily be like, well, I'm the guy, and whatever I say
Let's
go,
do
then they're gonna,
CG or something. Yeah.
and however I think this is gonna go, that they'll absorb it because it says Dave Filoni.
Yeah,
on it. He's
I
like,
make Star Wars, so if
he's
I
like,
do
no,
it this
these,
way, then it's Star
these
Wars.
fans will tell me when it's not good, and I know that. I got to make sure because he was a fan first, so he knows what it's like.
Ahsoka's Leku, remember they were like, fans tore it apart, and then they immediately were like, we have to redo this because fans didn't like it. And Rosario and Dave constantly were like, in the past few panels they've done, they've said like, oh, we made sure, guys, we got it this time. It's all good.
Yep.
So I feel like Dave comes with this respect for fans that you don't see necessarily with every creator, which is really nice because he comes as a fan first and as someone that I think he holds the legacy of what George would want. Like he doesn't take it lightly. He knows that he's the one that's carrying that torch and he has that reputation. And I think he proudly does it. And this story is no different than that.
He doesn't want to disappoint George Lucas,
Right. Because, George's going to call him and be like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
we gotta have Josh back to do the voice, to leave a voicemail for Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
He doesn't hold his position lightly. And it's funny too, because we're talking a lot about how he said you got to make the lightsaber battles look right. One of the takeaways from that video was there was a long shot of one of these lightsaber battles, and I like actually noticed, I was like, that looks cool. That looks really cool. It didn't. I mean, we've seen some of the other fights from Ahsoka. We've seen a little bit of they show it, and I go, yeah, it's fine. It didn't pull me in, but there's a very specific shot in this where it was kind of a longer take of one of the lightsaber battles, and I actively thought that looked awesome. That looked like they were like really fighting, and it was intense. And it was sort of this mix between like the we always do the way they plan out the prequels versus the other ones where they were more like thought out. Or I guess you could say simple. I don't know, but it just seemed like this perfect kind of balance as we sort of praised the sequels for as well. Like
there's a rawness to them.
Yeah, Rey and Kylo type battles.
It feels like an actual fight and not like Star Wars on ice.
Yep. Yeah. I love the feature.
I feel like
there was so much in there.
There weren't enough lightsaber battles in the sequel trilogy, so I'm pumped that they were like, we're having battles in this show.
About the stuff, it is a little obvious that they're trying to include the actors without including the actors, so it's kind of silly there. But I think one thing is that I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but it's that inclusion of Hayden's line, because like if you look at Obi-Wan, we got Qui-Gon and he made an appearance and he had a line, but already in the marketing, I feel like we've gotten as much Hayden as we did out of Qui-Gon. It's like that can't be the only line out of Hayden that he came in to record that. So it gets me pumped because I think they're just teasing you to say you need to watch the show because we have something big planned for that character.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas I've sort of been thinking in my head that it's going to be like, oh, well, we know what they did with Obi-Wan. Like they had to include him, so they stuck in Qui-Gon there like at the very end or something. But after seeing that trailer, I thought, you know what? I think they're planning something more with this, and it could be pretty cool.
Well, it's for two reasons too. One, obviously Hayden being back and like looking for opportunities for him to come back. but also in those opportunities that make sense. And I think this show, just as much as Kenobi, maybe some would say if not more, because you could have just went Vader the way they did in Rogue One and just have Vader and not do Anakin stuff. I'm glad they didn't, because that duel with Obi-Wan and Vader was awesome. But you can't have this show with Ahsoka clearly going through another stage of character evolution and not incorporate him in any way. So it just makes a lot of sense. It's not just let's get Hayden in there to get him in there. Like you say, it's also because of what Carrie Beck said. Like, you go from Qui-Gon to Obi-Wan to Anakin to Ahsoka. She's a part of the lineage. She's connected to it. That he's going to play a role in this, not just literally, but that everything that she knows that he had gone through and what's going forward is going to play a role in Ahsoka's evolution as a Jedi.
Yeah, as a teacher of Sabine, who we know in Rebels also does not like sand and think it gets everywhere. Well, we should probably take this opportunity to close out Resistance Report and head it into discussion. But before we do that, I do want to throw to Lacey, because I think we might have some super chats. We want to get to those.
We do. Let's see if there's some that don't have questions. All right. First up is Mickey Bell. Thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it, Mickey. We see you in the chat. He said, so beyond excited for Ahsoka, looking forward to a new story, but familiar faces in live action. I hope they don't skimp on the details, like Mando season 3 neglecting to mention Satine by name. It's true. It's true. Yeah. It's really weird that they didn't do that. But thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it.
Obi-Wan too.
Yeah.
Debatably, him talking about someone that he used to know. It could have been Padme, could have been Satine. They left it open.
And a lot fans were really upset about that, and I get it. Mike Lovins, thank you, Mike. We were just actually chatting about you, Mike, on our Patreon video, which will come out next week. He said, thank you for the super chat. Made it to a live one. Yay. So which is the worst possible plot? Sabine has Force or Palpatine makes an appearance?
Oh,
Palpatine showing up.
Palpatine makes an appearance, I think could be.
I think that'd be a bold choice. I think that'd be a good thing.
Let it go, John.
Mike, right there. I don't know if you can see it, but the headstock of my first ever bass. You are a bass player, Mike. So that is a Squire P bass that my mom said, get this thing out of my house. So now it's behind my couch in my house. And the strings are probably 15 years old. So I probably got to clean that up and restring it. But I figured you'd get a kick out of that. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it, buddy.
Also, Mike, you have a great pick. I like the setup of your pick, the way it's the aspect of where you're positioned. Really enjoy it. Anyway, thank you for the super chat, Mike. Now we're going to go to Diamond Figs. What up, Diamond Figs? You've been here for the past few weeks. Appreciate you, man. Diamond Fig says, Filoni episodes 1 and 5, best bets for when we see Anakin. I'm calling Thrawn and Ezra episode 5. Killing it, TRB Live. Thank you. You're killing it, Diamond Figs.
Thanks. I was going to bring this up in our discussion as like, where do we think the Thrawns, the Ezras, the bigger things? Do you think these are Dave Filoni's episodes?
Then we can get to that.
Why don't we get to that, and I'll bring this back up, Diamond Figs.
Okay,
so
you can start with that.
I'll bring it down and then bring it back up. But great question. Thank you for the super chat. We'll be right back to this. Go ahead.
All right, let's go with the discussion.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
All right, it is time for a Kessel Run, your 12 favorite restaurants in the Star Wars galaxy. I'm going to go first. Oh, nope. That's not what we're doing. Okay.
If you like Dex's Diner, check out Brian Ward's new lo-fi.
I know. That was so cool.
It's sick. It's so sick.
Yeah, we retweeted that on our Twitter account. I don't know what you say anymore.
It's a Twitter account.
Yeah. So Ahsoka series predictions and speculation. Yeah, we're 6 days away from the series. So we're just going to toss stuff out there. Things we think might happen. Also just, some speculation on what may be going on with these characters and this story and where this will lead. We can certainly start there in terms of those. If you want to pull up the Diamond Figs comment again or question.
I can. Diamond Figs, you're back.
So Filoni directing episodes 1 and 5, and Diamond Figs asked best bets for when we see Anakin. I'm calling Thrawn and Ezra episode 5. All right. So
Kicking it off big. We're starting with the big ones.
yeah,
Big speculation.
I'm not gonna. I don't think because I don't think Filoni is the type of person to grab the last slice of pizza or say like, it's my birthday, so we're doing this. He's the showrunner. I don't think this is that type of situation like with Mando, where it's like Filoni saying, "I'm doing episode 5 in season 2. I'm going Ahsoka here." I think this is now his show, so there's not that necessity for, oh, this is the Dave episode, so it's got to be this, this, this. So I don't think the Dave episode necessarily locks in that means Thrawn's going to be there. That means it's going to be, more Rebels heavy throwbacks or flashbacks to Clone Wars and stuff. I think it's going to be more evenly spread out. So that's where I'm at because he's the showrunner. I think it's a different situation than when he was directing Mando episodes. What do you guys think?
I'm interested to see how many scenes from Rebels they reshot in live action.
For flashbacks?
Yeah. Because I don't see them flashbacking to animation and live action. I think it would be too confusing for people. So I'm interested to see how many scenes we're going to see redone in live action to make sense to the viewer of what history there is with these characters.
Yeah.
But I think, man, this is a good point, Diamond Figs, that episode 1 and 5, you're like, who's going to show up in Dave's episode? But at the same time, I agree. I think Dave's there to tell a good story. But at the same time, from that Master and Apprentice kind of real 7-minute video that they had, he said he specifically was like, I'm doing episode 5 in season 2, so Ahsoka's going to be in that episode. I think Ezra's going to show up in episode 5.
Ezra?
Yeah.
So
I think Thrawn's going to show up earlier, to be honest.
Does that include the Ezra message to Sabine, though? Because I think that's like first episode.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying physical Ezra, like the actual character.
James, what do you think? Because ever since you said that thing about you don't think Ezra's going to be in this till the end, I can't get that out of my freaking mind.
Yeah. So my thought is sort of opposite yours, John, is that him directing that first episode for sure means that he sort of pulled the strings and said, I'm setting the tone for the rest of the episodes.
Yes. Yeah.
When it comes to episode 5, though, I still have a feeling that there's something about episode 5 that's personal and dear to Dave Filoni. So it makes me think it's a character reveal, which then you could say that Hera and Sabine, we've already seen Ahsoka, but Hera and Sabine are probably going to show up in that first episode as well.
What about Hondo?
Oh yeah, I mean, like it could be out of the ordinary, but I'm talking about the people that we know are going to be in the show. That means that when Dave directs the first episode, he's directing for the first time in live action ever Sabine and Hera, as well as Ahsoka, obviously setting the tone for the series. But then when we get to that episode 5, who are the other people to show up? Well, that would be Thrawn and Ezra, So that alone made me kind of speculate that what if Thrawn makes his appearance by saying, hey, you guys have been really annoying in episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I am here. I have your guy. Here he is. I've still got him held hostage, And that's when you get the reveal, A, of Thrawn, and B, of Ezra, and he gets to direct those episodes, and then you get 6, 7, and 8. So that would make me think that. But I do still think both of these characters aren't in this show much. Ezra and Thrawn both. Because I think your main villain are these two, dark side warriors. I think that's your main foil. You've got your other Inquisitor. You've got your other, I always forget her name. Elizabeth.
Morgan Elsbeth?
Morgan Elsbeth. Yeah.
Morgan Elsbeth. I was going to say Mary Elizabeth Winstead. There's
the artist formerly known as the Magistrate. I don't know if
you've got those people, but I think the main foils for this show are those two characters. And I think that Ezra's a MacGuffin and Thrawn is the, overarching enemy that you probably won't see much in the series.
So
But we'll make
while
his live
we're on
action
this
debut.
topic, we do have a super chat from Space Cadet. Thank you so much. It's their first super chat ever, so we really appreciate it. Thanks for being a part of the show.
Yeah.
Thank
He
you very
asked,
much.
we're getting so much EU content, Thrawn, etc. You think we'll get, better yet, Mara Jade? What kind of characters do you think? He said Islamari. Better yet, do you think Mara Jade? Do you think we'll see more EU characters in this show? Or I'm assuming ever, but we're going to talk in this because we're talking about Ahsoka in this show.
You're not going to get Mara
So-
Jade.
I have a feeling that Mara Jade is sort of a conceptual idea because it got squashed with the movies.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point, if you want to play with a Mara Jade style character, this is not my actual prediction for the show, but I would think that they could sort of make Sabine like a wild, beautiful, powerful warrior that has a loving relationship, an actual relationship with this other sort of destined Force user who is the exact same age as Luke Skywalker, born one day apart. You know what I mean? So if Ezra is sort of your Luke Skywalker, Sabine is sort of your Mara Jade. But she's not Force sensitive, so I don't know. But I don't really know the story with Mara Jade too. Like if she was actually Force sensitive, or they like made her Force sensitive using electronics or something. I don't know. I feel like there's something with that. Like she was a warrior, she had her mind wiped, or I don't know. It's weird stuff in the EU.
I just feel like Mara Jade's one of those characters that everybody always brings up. So I get worried because no matter what they do, I don't think it's going to be what people want.
Right.
Funny enough, I was talking to a coworker recently who's a big Star Wars fan, and they were like, "Oh, they're just leaving Mara Jade on the table. Like, why aren't they doing Mara Jade? Blah blah blah." And I have never wanted Mara Jade. But I'm not necessarily a fan of hers. But at the same time, I do understand like having a character that you really, really want to see appear, especially now that they're kind of bringing in all these different characters from different, books and comics and now animation to live action. I think, and we've said this before, Space Cadet, first of all, thank you again for the super chat. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think it's really difficult because we're talking about Ahsoka right now, to bring more people in because there's so many people in this show that it's turning into Mandalorian season 2, where it's like every week there's a cameo and some new character that you have to be like, oh my God, oh, okay. Could that potentially happen? Maybe. But I think for season 1, which is what we know right now, that they're only doing one season, I don't think she'll show up or any other characters necessarily will show up because they just have a lot on the billing of this show.
I wish that I think it would be more unlikely for Mara Jade to appear in Star Wars than any character ever created. And I honestly think that. I'm not even like trying to joke about it. Just because
Jackson's canon.
People have heard us say this on the show. People who were listeners back when J.W. Rinsler was on the show.
We miss you.
The late J.W. Rinsler, the great J.W. Rinsler, who did the making of Star Wars books. He worked closely with George Lucas. He said that George Lucas could not stand that character. And I think he even said he let J.W. Rinsler kill off the character, and George was happy about it. And I just cannot see in any stretch of my imagination Dave Filoni, who we were just talking about, wants to make George proud and do right by George, bringing this character that George Lucas, quote unquote, could not stand into canon Star Wars for the first time, and doing it now with Ahsoka, which is like the last connection to the last thing George created for Star Wars. So I'm just going to say it would beyond shock me if that were to happen. And I think I could safely say with 99.9 repeated certainty, do not expect that to happen, especially in this show.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And anything's possible, but like I said at the very beginning too, like I already feel like
anything is possible.
Yeah. Never say never, says Kathleen.
You can go to Taco Bell and win $100. Anything is possible.
I am going to bring up one more super chat from Diamond Figs. Thank you so much again for the super chat. You're killing it tonight. He said, I'm calling Sky Guy episode 1. Don't think they would let Anakin VO clip run if it wasn't in episode 1. Also, Revenge of the Sith is Dave's favorite prequel. Eyeballs. emoji.
Yeah.
It's not a bad way to kick it off. Like if somebody's like,
get
all right,
everybody in to
fine.
start.
I saw George on the trailer for the
Mhm.
thing. I'll watch it. And they watch episode 1 and it's like a flashback to the Clone Wars with
I
Hayden.
think
And
it's going to be.
Ewan.
I think
Well,
it's going
yeah,
to
that
be
too, but he's
Ahsoka dreaming.
Oh, I hate dream sequences, but okay.
But remember, Anakin had a lot of those.
I know. Yep.
I think the voiceovers that's echo quotes from Clone Wars, you're going to find Ahsoka having visions or dreams of those. I don't know that we're going to revisit those and redo things that were animated in live action that way. So I think any of those quotes that sound very similar or verbatim Clone Wars are going to be stuff that she's either dreaming or having a vision of. And then he'll
but we
appear
see
as
it, right?
Well, I don't know that, but
Okay.
we could maybe she dreams in animation, and maybe we see animated stuff, and they do a Quentin Tarantino thing. No,
maybe
but
it's claymation. Maybe
jokes
they're
aside,
Muppets.
I do think, in terms of predictions, I think we'll get that Forced Ghost Anakin, and they'll try to get the wig with the long hair that he looks like in Return of the Jedi.
Mhm.
So then we'll get other dialogue with him in the present, and then that stuff. And I still think I agree that there may also be flashbacks too. So I think they'll find different ways to incorporate Anakin without it just being one linear way.
You
It
know,
is still wild to me that he's in that commercial. Like absolutely wild.
Yeah.
that commercial really changed my mind because part of me always did say that I thought what they were going to do was a Hayden Christensen Forced Ghost come back and sort of have that conversation with her. But now I'm totally changed. I'm like, no, that's dialogue from the Clone Wars. That's when, she was younger or whatever. And, I was doing some looking too. And I guess there's some rumors that there is a young Ahsoka that was like rumored to be cast as well. And I'm like, I mean, that sounds awesome. And I think one thing that we are sort of maybe, I mean, not everybody, but like some fans are hungry for is to see the live action Hayden and Ewan in that like the Clone Wars armor look and all
Mhm.
that. And it's like, that's an immediate way to like win over so many people. And then the line in the trailer is like, like I can almost see him like putting his hand on her shoulder and saying like, I believe in you and stuff. And it's like, I just think that just is going to hit so hard, way more than whenever this other thing that I had in mind where it's like, he's the Force Ghost. And I know we've seen Force Ghost Anakin before, obviously in the movies, but it's like, it's weird, I think, to actually have a conversation with that Force Ghost. Like, you were really bad, man. Why should I be listening to you? And he's like, oh, but I'm good now. I'm obviously Force Ghost. It's just weird. I don't know.
How about this? Because
I like remembering him as the warrior he was or whatever. Yeah.
But you watch Clone Wars, you watch Rebels, and Dave Filoni loves to reincorporate even throwaway lines of dialogue verbatim into other contexts. So he does that. He also likes to bring back certain motifs and stuff like that. It would not shock me if in the present time, Ahsoka's in the midst of a lightsaber battle and maybe she's, being beaten. And we get the Obi-Wan to Luke where you just hear the voice, him speaking to her. The sort of thing some people wanted in episode 9 with the Force Ghost. You just hear him say like, sort of like, Mickey with Rocky, like get up, that sort of thing. Like him saying like, you can do this. I believe in you, Ahsoka. And like, that's a part of her finally fully getting back to being a Jedi. I think that would be
that's
a powerful
split up
thing,
because
too.
I take that whole line as something from Clone Wars.
It could definitely be split up.
It
but
could be.
I would just say I'm not predicting this. I would love to see that because I like the idea of seeing Hayden, and I think there will be that one scene sort of like Yoda in The Last Jedi where he has his Force Ghost scene moment with Ahsoka. But I also think if we could hear him just talking to her the way Obi-Wan did to Luke after he died, I think that could be powerful, or just as powerful, if not more, if she's in the midst of something difficult like Luke was when he was on the attack of the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
I have another discussion here about Ahsoka because another topic for you guys, because I think more than anybody who knows this, Dave Filoni knows that Ahsoka is no Jedi. everything in the marketing is a new Jedi will rise.
Mhm.
Yes. Yep.
And I see it. I go looking through the comments to see people who point it out, but no, there's no discussion about it. People point it out, but nobody's like really having the discussion as why is that part of the marketing? Because, you know, we sort of collectively, at least the three of us, don't think they're going to do. I mean, I guess, Lacey, you are sort of leaning towards there's a possibility you think that they will do the Sabine Force sensitive.
Yeah, we had talked about
what
this
is
for a Patreon. So our
Yeah.
Patreon thing was whether we thought Sabine would be force sensitive, and these two guys said no. And I had said I thought that it definitely could be a possibility because they're really leaning into it. But I mean, I guess we'll see. It could be either way.
Is Ahsoka becoming a Jedi again?
That's what I think it is.
You think it's that?
She's coming back to the full circle
Go ahead,
of
James.
like.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards, I think they're going to open up the world of like what it means to be a Jedi does not mean that you have to use the Force, and Sabine can be a Jedi without needing to have the Force. They're already sort of selling you on the idea of her having the lightsaber.
That.
They've set it up, master, and I know she's not Force sensitive, so it's like something's going on here, and they keep saying a new Jedi will rise. That could mean plural, as in like a new order of Jedi will rise.
That's tricky because we know what happens after with Luke and his academy and stuff. So is it a new order rises and then Luke craters it, and then we rise again with Rey and the rise of Skywalker? It's like I think I took it as, and you might be right, if they do the whole you can be a Jedi without being a Force user with Sabine. I don't know that I would love that, because I think then it's like, all right, it's like the whole everybody gets a trophy thing, or you could be a Jedi and, you know, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
but
I think it's interesting to hear it if you think of it like that, a new Jedi will rise. It's not like a person. It's
okay,
like a new Jedi.
What do you guys think of this? Because I thought of it as the new Jedi is Ahsoka, and she is coming back to being a Jedi, to embrace the things she liked when she was a Jedi, and not embracing the things that made her leave in the first place, and then taking what she has learned since and sort of creating herself as a new Jedi than what she was before.
Yeah, I mean, I was taking it kind of like that. I like the idea that she's the Jedi, that, you know, person that becomes the Jedi because she turned away from it. I took it also as more of, there's a lot of people that have heard of Ahsoka but haven't seen Ahsoka. So like it's a new Jedi when they're like, I thought all the Jedi were gone and here's Ahsoka.
Right.
So it's like, oh, a new Jedi is here. She never wasn't there. It's just to them she's new.
Yeah. And I think the reason that sort of bothers me a little bit is it feels like they're lying to the people who don't know who Ahsoka is.
Sure.
Like,
sure,
for everybody who knows what Ahsoka is, this line doesn't make any sense. We're just kind of like trying to make it easy for people to understand.
They're fudging it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I feel like they know they mean what they're saying. So because that doesn't make sense, it makes sense sort of if you're, you know, trying to help out the people who don't totally get it, but it feels weird. There's another weird one that I don't really like that much. And it's like, this show is all leading up to the reveal of Ezra, and he is exactly that, a new Jedi that people don't know, but he is a Jedi and he will become part of the story. So if you watch this show, there will be a new Jedi who will rise, you know, and it's Ezra. But I do feel like that takes away from the title character of the show and Sabine, who they're also building up. Like, why is it going to be all about Ezra at the end? And there was another angle of this too that I thought was I kind of forget now, but
well, how about some fun predictions? Do you guys have anything to just toss out there that might not be as heavy, or any speculation that you have?
I think the Mandalorian will show up at some point.
And Grogs?
And Grogu. Yeah.
Oh,
and
gosh,
Grogs. Grogs.
So which one of the directors is doing that episode? Is it someone who has
Steph
who
Green.
did? Yeah, did they do they did episodes of Boba Fett, but they didn't do Mandalorian, right?
It could be Steph Green, but at the same time, I kind of feel like he might show up at the end because it's a good way to lead this series into the next series.
It was
Like if he shows up with the gang there at the end of this season, and he's like, "Hey, I need your help" or something, or like, "Hey, we have another mission," or Ahsoka goes, "Oh, I know the perfect person to help us with X," and then you get the
Ramsey did episode 5 of Mandalorian season 3, which was that the Jack Black Lizzo episode?
No, that was Bryce
5,
Dallas
That was
Howard.
6. Oh yeah, right. What was episode 5 then? Because
I
that
think
could
Peter
be,
Ramsey did episode 2 with all the Mandalorians.
I mean, what I see here is Ramsey is credited as the director of episode 5 of Mandalorian season 3.
Oh. Is that Ahmed Best? Is that Ahmed Best's episode?
It might have
that
been.
Yeah.
I think it was.
So that's sort of a flashbacky episode,
Right.
right? I don't know. We're
Don't
trying
you
to
guys-
get to the who do we think did the
But don't you guys
Mandalorian
see?
one? Yeah.
I think the Mandalorian will show up too, with Grogu. But I almost feel like the way they use the Mandalorian for these shows, it's like sort of like the handoff, and it's like, now back to you, Mandalorian. And like I wonder if like Mando and Grogu will show up at the end for whatever the
Thanks,
climate.
Mandalorian.
Yeah, but like how he flies off in the end one with Grogu in Book of Boba Fett. I don't know. I kind of feel like they may end that, like make him a part of like the end and say like, oh, we're gonna go back to Mando, whatever. Even though Skeleton Crew's coming. But I agree. I do think they'll appear. I also think Bo-Katan's gonna appear in this series. I
I think
that
that would be smart.
I know I've been saying for a while that I think the Darksaber is going to be destroyed because of how, almost like the Ring and Lord of the Rings, people get so obsessed over it and who wants to be the Mandalore and rule Mandalore and stuff.
Mhm.
But if it's going to go on, I think it would make a lot of sense if Sabine gets that back and then Ezra gets his lightsaber back.
Wait, the Darksaber's gone already, right?
Why?
Mandalorian season 3? Am I wrong?
No, she has it. Am I crazy?
Bo-Katan has
It
it?
gets destroyed. He
It
destroys
gets destroyed. Moff Gideon destroys the Darksaber in the end of
Did he?
season 3.
Yeah.
Because we had a whole discussion where I was kind of upset that he was the one to
What?
destroy it, and I felt
He
like
destroys it
Bo-Katan
in
should have
front
been
of
like,
her.
I
Yeah.
don't need this to rule, and she
Yeah.
would be the one to destroy
Yeah.
it, but it was Moff Gideon.
Why am I forgetting that the Darksaber was destroyed?
Because we watch these shows one time and then we never revisit them. We just talk about them.
I
That's the
completely
problem
forgot
with
that
TV. If
Darksaber
this was a
destroyed.
movie, we would have seen
Everyone's
it
correcting
16
you in the
times.
chat.
Oh yeah! Wow, I completely forgot that they destroyed the Darksaber. Yeah. All
Well,
right.
this seems like
I-
a good time to get into some super chats. If you
I
guys want to do
I
that.
still think Bo-Katan's going to show up though,
That's fair.
because of her and Sabine's connection.
All right. So thank you to the Fort Worthian. What up? Thanks for the super chat. You said, "What up, TRB on the run?" But appreciate you all. We appreciate you and your photo is so snazzy. I think I said that last time, but it really is.
Thanks, man.
So thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks.
He's always on the run. He's a
Yeah.
troublemaker.
He is. David Ford's up. Thank you so much for the super chat. He said, "Will we see a
Hey, Dave.
flashback of a young Sabine appearing on Palpatine and Pals where she gets kicked out for telling him what she wants to be a Jedi?"
Yes.
Always
Thank you
with
so
the
much,
situations, David.
David.
Flashback of a young Sabine.
The stage name.
I'm gonna say no.
I like Palpatine and Pals. That needs to be the next like Young Jedi Adventures. It's like Palpatine and Pals.
It's just from the other side.
yeah, yeah.
I
It's
still
like Young
think
Jedi Adventures, just the dark side.
Yes.
I still think Moff Gideon destroyed the Hasbro electronic Darksaber, not the real Darksaber.
Yeah, it was not the real one.
I think honestly that might be one of the funniest goofs that you've done, John. That you were like,
That's a big
she's gonna show up with the dark saber
I mean,
and
That's supposed to be such a big moment, and I forgot
she's
about it.
gonna rule Mandalore, and we're all like,
All I think about is like the death of Paz Vizsla and all that stuff that happened.
Which
But-
speaks a lot,
Yeah,
like to that character being so prominent. And it's like, man, what a big,
it was
bold
'cause of how
moment
he
that they
died,
killed that
too.
character.
Yeah,
But like they kind of just blow over the destruction of the Darksaber like it almost wasn't anything. It just happens so fast.
yeah, that's
I
true.
should just show up to your house, John, with a dark saber toy. Just be like, hey, remember this? And just
Just do a video of me destroying it.
Diamond
Diamond
Figs is
Figs.
back. Diamond Figs, this is like your MVP tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
He said, y'all think young Snips will be de-aged Rosario?
No.
I don't know what
You
they're
think it's going to be
do.
a different person, or do you think they're going to de-age her?
It depends on when they show Ahsoka, like what age.
But based on the fact that
She's
it's
young looking.
Anakin at Clone Wars era, you're talking a long time ago. So I think at that point you recast. And I don't think at this point there's any plans to have that younger actress be, like a more prominent role. It's sort of like, we young Gamora, in
Right.
Endgame or whatever. It's
If they
like
do
I
Clone
think you can
Wars,
sort of
yeah.
have that without needing it to be like, well, she's carrying the mantle in that era now in live action. I don't think they have any plans. So I think that's the better way to go, is just cast a young Ahsoka.
Assuming that they even go there. They go
The bigger
that far.
question is,
True.
will
If
they
they go
de-age
there, yeah.
Hayden? Because they
No.
didn't in Obi-Wan, and it was very obvious. And look,
And
he looks amazing for his age, like aging like a fine wine. But still, there's a difference between 20-year-old Hayden and Hayden now.
Yeah,
which
and he
anybody
still
could
has
say about anybody.
He has his Padawan little pony nub, and he's like 40. It's like
It
watching
was
like
weird.
old rockers with their like watching Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue with his still stupid hair.
Man, that line really won me over. I really think we are gonna get that Clone Wars
Moment.
Yeah, the Obi-Wan thing happens before Attack of the Clones. So they've done between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones now in Obi-Wan. They showed that. Now Ahsoka is doing between Attack of the Clones and this to sort of give us that remember when Ahsoka, her first appearance, Clone Wars. By the way, I didn't mention this too. When did that Master and Apprentice thing drop? Because it was not like really close to like her birthday or whatever?
I have no idea offhand.
Yeah, I feel like just recently, and you guys can put it in the chat. Like
It was 3 days ago.
Yeah, there was like a big like Ahsoka it's been 20 years, or it wasn't 20 years, like 15 years of Ahsoka. This was the day that she made her debut in the movie or whatever. And I was like, I wonder if that was in correlation with them dropping that trailer too, to be like, it's 15 years. Let's drop it on that day.
Yeah. We do have another super chat from Certified Danny. Hey, Danny and Mark. I know Mark's standing by because he said that Mando is showing up. Book it in the chat. So what up, Mark? He said, or she said, how big of a role will Hera have in the series? Also, if a new Jedi will rise, is that a young Ben Solo? After all, this is leading into the sequel trilogy.
Nope.
I'm going to let James start. James, do you think Hera is going to have a big role in this series?
I think Hera will have a decent role in this series. I think the way that they're doing the marketing is it seems like it's the three of them sort of going on an adventure.
Even in Celebration, it was the three of them doing all the interviews together.
Yeah, although I don't know about the later episodes, I sort of see Hera as being like a big part of like the first 3 or 4 episodes, and then 5, 6, 7, and 8 being more about like the okay guy, like we're really fighting here. As far as the young Ben Solo thing, I mean, that could be cool, but again, that's introducing a whole other aspect that's really going to take away from the title of the show, which is Ahsoka.
John, what did you think?
The Ben Solo thing, no. But as far as Hera, I think yes, because I think we see that Lego set. Jason Syndulla is going to be involved here. It looks like they changed how he looked. And he actually looks more like young Kanan. So I think Jason Syndulla is going to sort of in a way fill the void of the lack of Kanan and like him being gone. Because it'd be a heck of a lie on Freddie Prinze Jr.'s part. I do believe him though that he's not in this or voicing or anything like that.
I wrote that down. No Kanan in this show.
Yeah. So
Well,
I
they
think
could recast it, guys. They recast
they could.
Ahsoka.
Yeah.
They recast Ezra. They recast Sabine.
Yeah, but I just don't think so. Because then if you're doing a flashback of Kanan and it's you're recasting Kanan just for a flashback, to me that would be weird. But I think I think that would be a little weird, at least for me. I'm just speaking for me. I'm not the voice of anybody here. But
Sure.
Jason Sindula, I think, will play that role, though, like filling that role. And he, I think he's going to have his own ship and he's going to do some things. And you're going to see Hera, like, mixing the worry for him and making sure he's all good, sort of like they were with Ezra and Sabine. But now it's her actual son. And then also while still being a general and a leader. So I think Jason Sindula will play a big role, not a big role, but a significant role that we're actually seeing him do stuff, and that character will grow for the future. And because of that, I think Hera will have an expanded role. And also, it seems while Ahsoka and Sabine are on these journeys, where Ahsoka is on this journey to clearly rediscover herself in a sense, and Sabine's sort of like one of those like coming of age, like becoming who you're destined to be type of things. Hera's like the concrete foundation. And she's going to be sort of more of the constant from what she was in Rebels. That's going to carry over. She is the constant. You need that. Not every character can be full of these character arcs and growth. She's going to be the constant that you need. And we see that with her, like clearly communicating with Mon Mothma, sort of that sort of command post sort of thing. So I think she will have a significant role there.
Yeah, I think she's the connection to the war aspect of it.
Rebellion.
She'll be like the post Empire Leia for this group. And then I think Jason Sindula just adds to that.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I do have to say, Danny, that I'm right there with you, girl. I'm starved for some type of Ben Solo stuff because
it's just amazing how no matter what you talk about in Star Wars, somehow that character always pops up.
think, John, it's because a lot of people are unhappy with how that character ended. So they're looking for the satisfaction and closure for that character in a way that they can feel better about how it ended.
Oh, I agree.
And I think that goes for any fictional character, really, because I found myself, after the first, the last Hunger Games book, like I found myself reading fan fiction because I didn't like how it ended. So it's just one of those things that like when you are unhappy with how a character goes, you're just kind of being like, oh, do you think this person's going to show up so I can have some explanation to why things went the way they did? Just because, people like their characters. But I hope we get something eventually, Semper Fi Danny. I'm still waiting on an action figure from Hasbro, which I've asked them for since 2019. But we'll see. But thank you for the super chats. Really appreciated.
This is not necessarily prediction or anything, but in terms of speculation on how Dave Filoni is going to navigate the new audiences, learning the characters the first time, and characters who love them, there's clearly going to be some levels of exposition in this. Sort of, if you want to harken it back to something recently, how they summarize stuff in Mando season 3 for people who, in case they didn't watch Boba Fett, like they kind of explained how they got to where they are. I think we're going to get peppered with exposition about these characters through dialogue, and so people can connect dots of who these people are without diehard fans who watch Rebels and know that story being like, oh my God, like seriously. And I'm curious to see how Dave walks that line. And I think he'll do a great job, of course, because he's Dave Filoni. But I think we are going to get peppered with that in a clever way so that general audiences can know who these characters are without us being like, oh, God.
Yeah, it's more important for Ahsoka to be sort of explained who she is, but they're already doing that in the marketing. I think a lot of the stuff that they're using to tell us is what it's the same stuff that's in the show. When we see it explained in the show, we're going to be like, they use that in the trailer, they use that in the marketing, because I think if they just really harp on it more than what they've already done in the marketing, then it becomes problematic for anybody who already does know about Ahsoka. We're like, we know, stop telling us this. So I think they need to put it in there, but but they've clipped out those segments and they've been hitting the marketing really heavy with it because they need those people to know who Ahsoka is. As far as Sabine and Hera, I think they can sort of play in that world of being like, yeah, for people who know they have a history, but I don't know how much, like, at what point can you just introduce a character and say, yeah, there's stories if you want to know, but like for all intents and purposes, if you're just watching the show, just here's Hera, here's Sabine. This is all you need to know about them.
Right.
You don't need to be like, oh, well, remember when we were always fighting together and we were a big family and all this, I think they can just sort of like, or even if they put in those lines, it's fine. That's enough that people go, Oh, I get it. You know,
Yeah, I don't think you need to go
like
into
any
deep
movie would
detail.
start, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, Lacey, we have some more questions, right? I guess
We
we're just
do.
gonna get through the questions now. We're gonna do like a separate segment because they've sort of been working their way in anyway.
Yeah.
So we have ones that are Ahsoka related and ones that aren't. Do you want to start with the Ahsoka related ones?
Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
stick with the Ahsoka for now because I think we all have more stuff to bring up ourselves. So
All right. So Jedi Secrets, thank you so much. Said, ask the Resistance. Where do you think we will see Callus and Zeb in the Ahsoka series? I feel like we're not going to see him. He's probably on his home world helping out his people. That's the big question about, I mean, not Callus for me, but for Zeb is like, we've already seen him. He looks amazing in The Mandalorian. So why hasn't he been in any of the marketing and or clips we've seen so far?
Because he's not in the show. And if he is, it's like a quick scene. That's my opinion.
John, what do you think?
Zeb?
Yeah.
Or Callus? I guess
John called Zeb and Mando season 3. We put out a short about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one's talking about him.
Yeah. But I forgot the Darksaber was destroyed.
Now it's been canceled out.
Yeah.
Those two things have
I
canceled.
remembered Zeb was in the show though. I think I'm gonna say yes. I think with what Thrawn's cooking, they're gonna need that sort of like all hands on deck, sort of like there's more of us Poe situation with Lando. I think we'll get a live action Callus at some point. Somebody's gonna show up with those big sideburns and get in the mix. And I think it'd be weird not to have Zeb involved.
Looks like Sawyer from Lost, actually.
Because if people want to, absorb this and enjoy this, they're gonna have all of them except Zeb. And we've already seen live action Zeb. I think that was a test run for audiences.
Looks so good.
I think he will be in this series, but maybe towards the end when they need a little more help and their backs are against the wall. So I think we'll get Zeb. I don't know about Callus, but I think that'd be cool. I think at some point we'll definitely get a live action Callus, but maybe not this season. But I think Zeb definitely later on in the season.
I hope we see Carson Teva.
That's what I was going to say
Yeah.
too, is that you've built over you've built in this crossover that if Ahsoka needs help, like if Mando needs help, he calls Carson Teva. If Ahsoka needs help, she calls Zeb and whoever his gang of people are. And so
Rex.
I mean, it could be, but it's like whoever those, we haven't even talked about Rex.
Rex, can we all say that's definitely happening?
I think that's happening.
What? I
James,
forgot.
book it.
I can hear Tem being like, I was waiting to tell
my
everyone.
whole
I was
theory
in it.
about like Dave doing the 1st and 5th episodes means he covers everybody, but then that's not including Rex. So where does Rex show up? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Rex is the 5th episode and Ezra's like at that tail end, that very last episode that,
Yeah.
All right. Can you smell what the throne is
I
cooking?
hope. I mean, you're finally doing live action Ahsoka. It's the Rebels follow. Get them all in there. Get them all in there. 8 episodes. That's a lot of time. And then there's probably more seasons. If this is successful, again, that's a big part of all this too.
Here is an interesting one from Frank Grande. What up, Frank? He said, #ask the resistance. Do you think Luke will be in a flashback telling Ahsoka Anakin's fate? I hope so, and hope Anakin's Force Ghost shows up and Ahsoka says, "Hey, Sky Guy."
Oh.
Because she doesn't know, right? She doesn't know that he...
As long as Anakin in Anakin voice says, that name no longer has any meaning for me.
Oh, stop. I would love if she said, "Hey, Sky Guy." I think we're going to get it at least once because she did throw it up on Instagram that day. I think we're going to get it.
It's like Han with
possible.
Ben Solo. He's going to be like, "Hey, Snips." She's going to turn around and be like,
Well, I think if they say it, it's in that flashback.
Yeah.
Oh, so it makes more of a sense that she's saying it instead
That
of
she
just
would say it at
randomly.
that time, and so we get the reference and all that other stuff. But when it's being pitched here, it's a little bit more like you're being hit in the feels because you haven't said those names or those words in X amount of years. The thing about the Ahsoka Anakin or the Ahsoka Luke thing is that I thought that was going to happen in Mandalorian. It didn't. And
Yeah, we
I
all
got
did,
the
yeah.
vibe from that they already know each other. They've already had those
And
discussions.
that conversation took place. Yeah.
Yeah. So what Frank is pitching here is, do you think we'll see it in a flashback, Luke and Ahsoka finally having that conversation?
That'd be amazing.
I don't
feel like
know.
she would be the only one that would understand, because there also has to be a moment, which is what was confusing for me, that she has to explain to Luke who she is.
Maybe John's right. Maybe it's a big vision and it's all put into one. She sees herself with Anakin, and he's a great warrior and he has all this faith in her. And then it cuts to, Luke being like, he was redeemed in the end, or like maybe in the middle there, she's struggling. It shows her, and it's a recreation of Rebels, like where she's meditating and Vader's in the background. She's like scared because she realizes who it is. Maybe it's all one big, like crazy scene where you get some of those moments.
Yeah. I also don't see any situation in which
a medley.
if Anakin knows how to materialize with the Force, as a Force spirit, why he would not have visited Ahsoka. So I think that's a lock. And then I agree, like there has to be
see you, John.
There has to be
a
moment where Ahsoka and Luke meet. I think he's right. I think that's where he was going with that, and I completely agree.
I'm just so surprised it didn't already happen, that at this point I go, then I don't know when you do it. You have to do it, but it feels weird in this show because I feel like I'm getting sold on other flashbacks, and I'm like, you can't just be flashing back the whole series,
right? And the whole thing is like, you just feel like feels like they're kind of, what we were talking about it earlier, or they're like going back to explain things when you're like, why didn't you just explain that in the moment? Why are we going back to this moment?
Yeah. Or like, we just got a comment about Rex, and that's another one too. Is like, they make a big thing like, hey, Rex, and most audiences are like, who's Rex? So it's like flashback time. They like show him again, like how he was this great leader when he was Anakin's 501st. And I don't know, you'd have to do it in one like compilation or something and just get it all done with. Maybe
while we're talking about people showing up, Danny makes a good question of, ask the Resistance, Hondo, where art thou, Hondo?
I think Hondo is in Skeleton Crew.
Oh, I think that's a good place for him to be, honestly. I think you're right. I think that's a good, because we talked about it earlier, like it's gotten to the point now that it's turning into Mando season 2, which I use in a loving way, but it was literally every episode someone showed up and you were like,
right,
I can't keep up with all these crazy cameos.
Well, season 3, they just pushed them all into one episode.
That was just straight bananas. But yeah, I agree with James. I think Skeleton Crew is a better place.
Good choice of words.
We do have another super chat from Diamond Figs. Diamond Figs, you killing it tonight. You buying us tacos here? Like, what's going on? Thank you, Diamond Figs. They said, wasn't expecting Luke till I saw it confirmed. This takes place directly after the Corvus episode, potentially before Mando season 2. I'd rather see Rex Luke. This takes place before Mando season 2?
Wait a minute.
I thought this takes place.
I'm trying to understand this because he says, Luke, till I saw it confirmed. This takes place.
That's not possible because she finds the magistrate during season 2. I'm so confused. It couldn't be before season 2 because she has a standoff with the magistrate and she talks to her like she's already met her, which is season 2, right? Am I wrong? I'm terrible with timelines, by the way. I'm gonna be honest.
No, I mean, so the pitch here is that Ahsoka takes place between Mando season 1 and season 2, because it would be like she fights the magistrate and then, I don't know, John might be better to jump in on this one. John.
Ooh, good segue. Well done. Welcome back, John.
What do you think of this question being pitched as this show sort of taking place before Mando season 2, because it's supposed to take place after the Corvus episode, right? Like after she fights the magistrate, then we continue on with Ahsoka as sort of a secondary, it's happening over here timeline.
I don't think so, because it seems like
The only thing that's making me wonder about this is he says it here, until I saw it was confirmed. I'm like, what is that, a leak or something?
Wait,
Somebody said
is so I understand this correctly, because I just went to Mortis and came back for
1985 and skewed off into this other timeline is where we're going here.
Yeah, so is Diamond Fig saying Ahsoka takes place before Mando season 2? Is that what I'm?
That's how I'm reading
directly
it,
after the Corvus episode of season
So
1.
the Darksaber's back in play. Good.
It could be. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Thanks, John.
That's a redemption story.
Get back
baby.
to us, Diamond Figs, because we're kind of confused. But
I don't think so.
I think Jon Favreau is very straightforward, where he's like, I don't like confusing timelines. This takes place immediately after this. This takes place immediately after this.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like, I feel like if that was the case, they would have already put it in the marketing. It wouldn't be like day one. It'd be like, oh, you know, this isn't after Mandalorian. He said
he meant Book of Boba Fett. That makes more sense to me. So that would be parallel with Mando season 3.
But we're still jumping back in time.
We are going back
to sort of retell her point of view
between the two.
And then when you get to the end, it's like she walks up and Mando's fighting, you know, his final battle or something. You know what I mean?
And that would explain why they didn't show up to help Mando. Maybe because that was one of the questions we all had, was like, why didn't anybody come to help Mando?
I think if their goal is to not only have general audiences be confused, but also diehard fans, this is the way to go.
We're confusing right now. So we have 2 more super chats. This running long here, but we're trying to go through all our cool speculation and ideas and predictions for Ahsoka.
I have a couple more things, not too much.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get through these 2 things, then we'll get back to final thoughts, I think, right? Then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
So we have super chat from Dave Ford. Thank you so much again for the super chat. He said we'll get a young Ben Solo Chronicles show with Harrison Ford as archaeologist Hoboken Smith joining Ben on his quest for the holocron of destiny.
100%.
That has to be true.
It was greenlit right after the success of Indy 5.
Yep. That's replacing the Rangers of the New Republic show.
Yeah.
And Diamond Figs is back again. Man, don't worry. It's all good.
You don't have to send super chats for an edit.
Lamb, fat thumbs. It's all good.
I spelled Ahsoka wrong.
It's all good. We appreciate it, though. Thank you so much. And I do want to get to this question because I promised him at the top of the show. We're getting back to Miles here. This is a kind of offshoot from Ahsoka, so we're going to answer this and then get back to our final thoughts of Ahsoka.
Thank you, Miles.
Miles, thanks so much. I didn't forget about
finally.
Yeah, I didn't forget about you. So a prediction on Black Spire Outpost and Outlaws game. This game looks sick. I would say that it's probably in there because it seems like the people that work on the games and the people that work on the parks are in the same space.
I thought that this game was sort of like anything that anywhere we've been to in Star Wars you can go to almost. So
I don't open world is never truly open world. I mean, like there are games that play in that, but I think they'd just spend so much time designing all that. But Black Spire Outpost specifically, yeah, I think so. I think
it's an easy way to tie it to the park.
Yeah.
And also you could go there and like the Falcon's not necessarily there, so it adds that element to it. Like it could just be a different look to Black Spire Outpost.
Right. That's a good way to show Black Spire Outpost at a different time frame.
Yeah.
Although I'm not exactly sure when Outlaws takes place. Because video games, man, they don't exist to me until they are out to buy.
Here. Yeah, it makes sense.
Like Hunters right now, like what's the story with that game?
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah, true.
I don't know. Thank you, Miles. Sorry it took a little bit to get back to it, but we did get back.
Yeah,
so we appreciate you.
That's a good question, though.
So I guess now we can get into, John, if you want, like final thoughts.
Yeah. So my last big swing is, and I've said this on the pod before, but I'll say it again because this show is, I just had this weird feeling that Thrawn is going to pull that sort of power, you know, mob Dawn sort of thing where, or even military thing where you have somebody that you're using and you exhaust them of all their value and resources to you and you have them killed because now they're a threat to you because you have no more use for them, but they have all your info. And I just had this weird feeling that the casualty of that from the villain side of things is going to be Morgan Elsbeth. And I think Thrawn's going to have her killed and possibly even by one of the two mercenaries, whether that is Balin or Shin. I could just see that happening. I don't know why. I just have this weird feeling that she's going to get killed at the hand of not our good guys, our heroes, but at the hands of an order by Thrawn. And then in terms of the end of the show, I feel like it's going to end with some sense of accomplishment from our heroes, but also I feel like there's going to be some not like final order thing with Rise of Skywalker, which felt like way too like, oh, that exists. It's gonna be more like we're gonna see really what's behind the curtain. Like, you know, Thrawn has this little thing that he opens up, but then by the end of the series, we really see what his grand plan is, and we're gonna see like sort of like the end of Attack of the Clones when you see them overlooking all the clones and all the Star Destroyers and everything. We're going to see that of Thrawn to end the series.
Interesting.
Like this is setting the table for the movie.
For the movie.
Yeah. So I think that like we're going to see big stuff in this show. But when you take into consideration, you know, they are filming in the volume and there are probably some limitations in what they can do. It's all going to service as these little seedlings for what's going to come in the movie. So I think by the end of the series, we are going to get some sense of like accomplishment with our heroes and stuff. There's going to be like victories and we're going to feel good about that. Ezra gets found, you know, a big one. But then it'll do that classic Star Wars thing. Let's check in with, you know, Anakin and Padme's wedding, but now let's check over to Palpatine overseeing the future of the Empire. We're going to see Thrawn and all of his legions and everything and the full scale of what he's, you know, coming up with.
It really makes me wonder too, like what that movie looks like. Is it Thrawn controlling what's left of the Empire, or is it Thrawn being like, I now with no restrictions, I have access to the Chiss, and this is my army. This is what I am about. This is what I am bringing to the table, and you need to be scared. And but I don't know. I almost feel like that's too big for like Ahsoka and Sabine to take down. But you know what? That makes it, but it's not just not just her. It's the Mandalorian. It's also, you know, it's
skeleton crew. It's going to be everybody.
Yeah, it's going to be Endgame. So I don't know, man. I mean, in any way, shape, or form, I really feel like it's fine that they put Thrawn in this. This is the setup for his character, but I really just don't think he's going to be in the show much. I don't think he's the main core villain of this 8-episode arc.
I think that makes sense. I think you guys made some really good points. I honestly don't know what to expect from this show. I've always been very honest that like, I think Rebels is great. I'm not the biggest Ahsoka fan, but I feel like The Mandalorian made me even more of an Ahsoka fan because I know the passion and excitement that's coming from Dave Filoni, and watching everybody talk about how this is such a big moment, it's like made me care more about it. I'm like feeding off of that energy. But I am interested to see what the impact is on Star Wars in general from this series, because every time we get one of these shows or movies or books or whatever, you wonder, okay, what's the ramifications of this show? So I'm interested to see what it's going to be and what kind of connections they're going to draw to Star Wars. Cause I think as fans, we've always kind of asked, like, especially with the sequel trilogy and the original trilogy, obviously, but like sequel trilogy too, like, where was Ahsoka during all this time? Like, what was going on? Like, where are these characters? So I think this is a very interesting opportunity that they have to provide some transparency and understanding of like where people were at what time and why and what was going on, and making the galaxy bigger. I think that this series will make it feel like there's more going on than just this timeline over here with Luke. There's more going on than just what Rey's doing over here. Because they talk about this galaxy from far, far away, which is gigantic with all these different planets and spaces and different places that have never been explored. Yet we kind of stay in this little chunk. So I think this is going to be a good opportunity to do that. And I think John said this before. I think we're going to see a lot more of the kind of spiritual, supernatural maybe angle of the Force with Ahsoka. Stuff. Yeah, because Dave Filoni loves it. So
yeah,
I'm sure we'll see more of that.
He loves the weird stuff. My fear for the show is, and I don't want to put it out there, but it's like we're all sort of thinking it. It's like what if it doesn't live up to expectations or doesn't hit with fans because they don't connect with the characters? The writer strike has a thing with it, or Kathleen Kennedy stepping down has something to do with it, and all this. And it's like, what a long play to like have Rebels do its 4 seasons and have this teaser, and then now it's finally going to exist, and they do 1 season and it was all set up for this stuff, and then it just all falls apart. It's
Imagine
like,
what Dave feels. I gotta feel Dave, because obviously Dave's a writer, so he's 100% on the side of them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it has to feel like, man, talk about timing. Like,
he's probably like, you gotta be kidding me. Yeah.
And
like his life has been leading to this point, basically.
Yeah, like it just doesn't seem like it. You can get along with Kat. I'm sure he gets along with her. I'm sure it's all fine, but it's also just sucks when that person who's empowering you and putting you in the position that she has been for so long is also like putting out another movie that's like not doing well, and it's like,
right.
Oh, come on, man.
I think it'll be fine.
I just
general audiences, like, I would, if you go out in the street and go to a mall, like I said, if those still exist, and interview 80 people.
Why do you always think malls don't exist?
It's just a bit.
They exist.
We're just doing a bit here. That's all we're doing. And then you just ask those people, like ask 80 people. I bet 75 would have no idea that there's a strike happening. They're just like, oh, the Star Wars show's coming out. I'm gonna watch that. So I think it'll get the views it hopefully it's was going to get.
It deserves,
yeah, and I think it's going to be good. So I'm
so pumped, guys. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. The closer we get to it, and I kid you not, man, the marketing worked because that Hayden line just totally
killed everyone.
So, yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just Hayden,
and it was days after we were like, they'll never do it. They'll never do it.
Also,
it's like Order 67, he just slayed.
Also, people who may not really know Ahsoka, like my brother, for example, if he hears Anakin and says like, oh, he's going to be in this, I'm definitely going to check it out. So
Matt only knows Ahsoka from James's video from like 4 years ago. We got to re-release that. Ahsoka comes out today. Ahsoka Tano.
Get excited.
All right. Anything else, guys?
I just want to thank everybody in the chat tonight. The chat's been killing it, and you guys are having so much fun with us speculating
for hanging out for so long. This is a long episode, one of our longest ever.
Yeah. And it just makes me even more excited for Ahsoka in the coming weeks, because I know we've been feeling it. I'm sure you've been feeling it too, like kind of just a lack of Star Wars and like missing that good vibe feeling hype for this place that we love so much. So thanks for being here and chatting with us, and I can't wait to see what comes in the next few weeks and like get so excited with you guys every Wednesday. It's just such a wonderful feeling. So this is a preview of that.
Good times ahead, indeed. We want to thank everybody, whether you're listening on podcast apps or watching on YouTube, or you were able to join us live. It means a lot to us. So thank you so much for hanging with us on this episode. And however long you've been with us, whether you're new to TRB or you've been with us for a long time, thank you. Keep spreading the word. Tell your friends about TRB, especially as Lacey said, we're heading into some new live action Star Wars in less than a week. So tell your friends. It's always good to talk Star Wars.
Shows are going to be on Wednesdays.
Pals, yeah, we will be live, TRB live Wednesday nights for the run of Ahsoka. So adjust your calendars accordingly and cancel all plans on Wednesday evenings, except us, of course. Just kidding. But we want to say a special thank you to our patrons too. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of what we're doing, and we can't thank you enough. And if you are interested in supporting us, please head to patreon.com/resistance broadcast. We have a lot of exclusive content on there. We also have our own Discord server. If you're getting a little just overwhelmed with what's going on with social media these days, and a lot of awesome perks, rewards, and a great community. So if you're able to, patreon.com/resistance broadcast, tier start at just $5. And a special thank you to our generals and spice runners on Patreon: Carmelo, John RISI, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Darth Hurricane, Nick Kratz, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Rumore, Matt Heath, Brendan McLaughlin, Count Pepto, Sneaky Zebra, Aaron Ellington, Colin Cormier, Jolton Jedi DiMaggio, Diana and Dave Hornack, and the Spice Runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gelner, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Michael Fry, and the Fort Worthian, and all of our supporters. However you support TRB, thank you all so much. For me, Johnny Hoey on most social media apps, and my movie pod, Just Like the Movies. We're doing Top Gun Maverick next, our newest movie we've ever done. Lacey, how about you?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram and every other platform at Lacey Gilleran, except TikTok, where you can find me at It's Lacey Gilleran.
And we're also at TRB Podcast. We're also on Threads and Blue Sky.
We're
now.
everywhere.
Well, yeah. James.
Twitter and Instagram, both at Myra Trunks.
All right. We hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. James and I will be back with you on Monday, where we're going to talk a bit more about Dave Filoni and other Star Wars topics. We're going to do some Ahsoka-based Will of the Force 2 as we all get ready for Wednesday and the big 2-episode premiere of Ahsoka. So enjoy the death rattle of your summers. We hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time right here on the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids.